Alright, hi guys, welcome to the basics of Lightroom. So first what you guys will want to do is you'll go and adjust the white balance. It's very important and it changes the whole look of your image. So what you'll need to do is find something that was white in your image, get the dropper that's in the right hand, top right hand, and you'll drop that onto the white and it will change it for you. Next what you want to do is adjust the temperatures. So this is something that you don't need to overdo, you just need to add it slightly, so whether you're going for a warm or a cool effect, you do that. So I'm going to go for a warm effect, so I'm going to push it more to the yellow side. Then you can add a tint. Because of the human skin kind of look, you'll push it more towards the red and pink side rather than the green to make it look more natural. So next is exposure, so there's underexposed and there's overexposed. So what you want to find is a middle ground between that, where your subject is well lit and you can see the subject quite easily. But that's just a rough estimate, so depending on whether you're going for a black and white or you just want to see your subject, you'll change the exposure. So next what you'll want to do is the contrast. So contrast, you'll either drop it if you want to add more whiteness to it, or if you want to add more detail, you'll push the contrast more to the right. So I'm adding it around plus 14. That's just a good kind of estimate to go with. So next what you'll move on to is all of the highlights and shadows. So with the highlights, this kind of boosts the whites and just allows your image to be highlighted and in certain aspects, so the whites will be highlighted. So as you can see in the background, I have a white wall and that is being highlighted. With the shadows, that will bring out the darker colors more. So because my subject has dark hair and she's wearing a dark hoodie, you'll see that the dark colors get darker with the shadows. So next is white and blacks. So that just is pretty much in the name. It changes the white and black colors to make them brighter or darker depending on which one. So if you move it further to the right, it will be lighter, and then if you move it further to the left, it will be darker. So we'll change that according to our image and what you have in your image. So if she's wearing a black hoodie, I'll want to bring the darks out quite well. So I'll change the blacks and make them darker. Next, you'll move on to texture. So if you push the texture to the left, it's quite smooth, and then the more that you push it to the right, the more texture comes. So again, you will want to find a middle ground where it doesn't look too fake, but it does bring the texture out. Again, same with the clarity, finding a middle ground, so usually about plus 20 is a good estimate for humans. So next is the dehaze. So this is basically going to either add a shadowy effect to your image or make it a lot brighter. So you'll probably put it around the middle, you might not even want to move it, it depends on what kind of look you're going for. So the next part is vibrance and saturation. So vibrance is adding, and saturation is adding more color into your image. So as we're in the sunlight and we're in natural lighting, we'll probably want to boost it more towards the yellow side, just to bring out that kind of golden hour look. Next, we'll move on to the tone curve, which is just below the basics. So here it's very simple to use. You'll see that it's got different sections. So it has the shadows, and then it'll have the darks and the whites. So first, you just want to make very, very small changes. You don't want to push it too far. And yeah, it's kind of just off your eye and see what looks best for you and your image. So with the darks, as she's wearing a dark hoodie, you'll probably push it darker and just bring out those colors a bit more. And then we'll want to highlight her face. So with the lights, we'll push that more. And as you can see, it's highlighted her face in the background just slightly. So next, now we're going to move on to the hue, saturation, all that kind of stuff. So I'll cover saturation in another video, so I'll just do hue. So here with my subject, you'll want to push the reds depending on what kind of colors you want to bring out. So we have green, yellows, oranges and reds in these images. So this will be like the main part. As you can see, if you push it too far, it doesn't look great. So you'll want to find something that looks natural, unless you're going for a supernatural kind of look, like maybe aliens or something. But with the greens, you'll see in the background how vibrant they get when you push it further to the right. So just finding middle grounds and finding what looks best for your image is just the point of these hues. The next is color grading. So that's really just mid-tone shadows and highlights, and it's a color wheel. And it also has an adjustment down the bottom where you can change how much of that is coming through. So depending on what looks best for your image, you can just move that around and see what works, and then you can adjust how much of that is coming through. So you can just do that and work out what's the best kind of looking, and you can also just go back and look at what your original image looked like and compare and see what looks better. And if you want to blend that as well, if you want to blend the color wheels to help them adjust better, then you can adjust that depending as well, and the balance. Lightroom is actually very easy to use. It does kind of look complicated when you're first coming onto it, but it is quite easy to use and quite straightforward. So everything is kind of just looking and using your eyes to see what looks the best. There's no right or wrong in Lightroom. So next we'll move on to the effects, all that kind of stuff. So if you want to add a vignetting, that's something that's quite handy if you want to bring out your subject more, but you want to blur out the background. So you'll see with feather that kind of makes how hard the vignette is quite. So we'll just use that to see the shape of our vignette, and then after that we'll move it back so that it's smoother. So as you can see, I'll move it back now, and that just smooths it out, and you'll see how clean that looks now. And you can change the amount and the midpoints and everything like that, and then you can bring out the highlights. So as you can see, before and afters in a minute, our subject has been highlighted, and the background's more blurred and darkened now, so the main focus is on our subject. So this is quite handy. So Lightroom has a lens correction, and it can tell what kind of lens you used, what camera you used. So if you press enable profile corrections, it will tell you every single thing that you've used. And it's quite helpful when you want to get color balances right, if you want to get white balance and everything, because sometimes it can be different for different cameras. But that's just something handy to know. But you do have to shoot in RAW for that. You can't shoot JPEGs because then it won't be able to read it. Alright, so now we're going to move on to some different techniques such as healing, cropping, and also some masking. So first we'll go to cropping. So you can adjust it if you have, for example, a horizon that you want to get and you want to straighten out that image. I don't in this image and any of the images that I have at the moment. So can't really show it, but you would draw the line over and then it would adjust the image to your liking. And that's the same for the angle as well. So you can change that around and see what works best for you. I'm going to change it back to normal, but you would just change it around to see which one works the best for you. So after this, we'll move on to healing. So this can be used for any spots or like pimples that are on your subject, or for example like dark eyes, or if you want to just get rid of freckles or something like that, you can use the healing tool. So you can zoom in and you can just try and select all of that. But there's also times that it won't, because it's using AI technology, sometimes it won't get it right, such as now, I'm assuming, yeah. So sometimes in harder areas it won't it won't pick it up. So you might have to make the dropper smaller by decreasing the size, which is up in the right hand corner, and the opacity so that it can do it properly. And that's just really what you can do around. You can just play around with it, see what works best for you. Alright, so next now we're going to move on to red eye correction. So I don't have red eyes in here, and it doesn't happen much anymore, but in case it does, this is a tool that is very helpful if you do have red eyes in your images. So because I don't have anything, it won't come up, but you can adjust the size of the eye and the shape. So here you can see I'm just drawing out the circle. It can also happen when you're using flash photography. Sometimes red eyes can come up, but yeah, that's just the basics of that tool. So now we're going to move on to masking. So masking is super helpful. There's so many different options that you can use in Lightroom. So first we'll just go with a sky mask. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we can adjust the exposure or the contrast, anything that you kind of want. You don't want to push it too far, but you can just kind of play around with it and see what works. But this kind of sky tool is very helpful, and it does all of the work for you, so you don't have to select anything. All you have to do is press the button. And you have the same option for your subject and also for the background as well. So yeah, it's a very helpful tool, and it can help bring some more depth into your image because it edits different parts of your image but then keeps other parts the same. So now we're going to create a new mask. We're going to use the select subject tool. So after that loads, it will color your subject as it's cut it out. And then from there, you can change it as you did with the sky and with any of the others. So we might want to brighten our subject up so that she stands out more. So we can push the exposure up, we can adjust everything else, so we can just go through like we did in the basics. Another one that's very helpful is a radial gradient. So a radial gradient is basically where you can draw a circle around a certain aspect of your image that you want to change. So you can go in and just highlight your subject's face, for example, if you want to make that brighter, but then you want to leave everything else the same. But you don't want to brighten up her whole body, you just want to brighten up her face. So what you can do is you just draw on that new mask. So here you would just draw it on and draw a shape. You can move it, so I just start with a small one, bring that down, stretch it out, and then stretch it out towards her face. So we'll just bring that out there, maybe move it a bit further towards her ears so that it doesn't look unnatural. And then we can bring it into her hair as well, just so we can lighten up her hair. And then from there, again, we can just adjust the contrast and everything else that we need to do. So the last thing that we're going to do is a linear gradient. So this is something that you can bring over your image, so you can draw from the side and you can adjust the angles. As you can see here, I can go on a slant or I can go straight. And this just brings a gradient across your image so that it doesn't look as harsh, and it can just smoothen the image out slightly and bring a bit more shading and depth into your image as well. So from here, what you can do, a good tip, is using the Y on your keyboard. So from there, you can see before and afters. So if you keep pressing Y, you can see what difference it's made, and you can do a side by side, or you can do a half and half. There's a lot of different options. So here is the half and half, and then you can go back. So the Y tool is very helpful and very easy to use, but it just helps you see what you've done so far. Hi guys, this is a tutorial to add dark tones to your images and give it a cinematic look. So first what you'll want to do is drop the exposure down. So you'll drop it quite significantly, but not too much. Then you'll go down and you'll drop the clarity and texture. This just helps to clear out your image and make it look a lot smoother, but it also does leave a little bit of texture. But you can also boost it, as I've done here, if you want to go for a different look. Next, what you want to do is you'll drop all the colors in the saturation down to -100. So this will get rid of all of the colors in your image, and it'll leave you with just a black and white photo. So this will be the first step. Then after that, what you'll want to do is, if you want to bring back some color in the face, or if there's colors around, for example, like the AstroTurf that I have in this picture is green, so you'll boost the green up slightly. You don't want to give it too much where it's very vibrant, but you just want to give it enough where it's seen, so that it still has that kind of moody, dark look, but it does bring a bit of a pop in color. So you'll bring up the red next for the face slightly, but the orange is going to be the main thing that brings the color back. So you'll want to boost that to about -52. Again, just bringing back a slight bit of color, not too much. Then you'll go up and you'll change the whites. You'll push that not too much, because then it's going to be overexposed. So you'll push that to about +33. Then you'll drop the black slightly, and basically that's enough for the colors. And then if you want to go back and make adjustments like I've done here, if you think that the green is too vibrant and it doesn't fit the moods quite right, then you can drop it slightly. Next, you'll make a mask in the mask tab, and you'll invert that tab. So you'll select subject, and then you'll go up to the top and you'll invert it. Then you'll go up to exposure, and you'll increase or decrease the exposure depending on what you want. And then you'll drop the black slightly. So next, what you'll want to do is get a radial gradient. So you'll go to the plus tab, and then you'll push radial gradient. So this will just help to brighten up your subject if you want to bring out the subject more compared to the background. So you'll draw a ring, and then you'll place that over your subject. Then what you can do is you can change the feather on depending on how harsh or how smooth you want the radial gradient to be. I kind of want it in the middle, just so it's a basic normal. You don't want to push the whites too much, again, because it will be overexposed or it will just look unrealistic. Alright, hi guys, so this is the Lightroom tutorial on black and white photography. So first what you want to do is underexpose your photo, so you'll drop it to about 0.75. Then you'll go down to saturation, and you'll drop all of the colors down to -100. So this just gets rid of all the colors so that it leaves the texture, compared to if you use the black and white filter, which is on the left hand side. So after you've done that, then you'll want to bring the texture down just slightly, and then you'll bring the clarity down as well, because you want to blur the background so that your subject is in focus mainly. You'll drop the black, and you'll push the white slightly, and then after that, you don't want to push the whites too far, and you don't want to push the black too low. You just want to find that right balance where it's just highlighting the face slightly. Then you'll probably bring the exposure back up after you've made those changes, just so you know that that's the right kind of look you're going for. Next, you'll make a mask, so you'll go to the last slide, you'll push subject, and that will select your subject for you. So after, what you'll want to do is you'll push the exposure up on your subject, but it won't push the background exposure up. So probably push that just a little bit, probably about maybe 15. That's probably about the right, but it depends on your photo. Then you'll push the whites up, and then you can change the amount up the top. So if you don't like how much it's got, you can reduce it, or if you want more, then you can increase it. Alright, so now next what you'll do is you'll add a new layer, and you'll select the select background, and and that will just select the background for you. Lightroom does all the work for you, you don't have to select it yourself. Then what you'll want to do is you'll bring the blacks down quite severely, just so it completely blurs out, and it almost gives it a studio look. Even though this was taken outside, this almost looks like it was taken in a studio with artificial lighting. So this is the tutorial, and I hope this was helpful.